Okay, we are looking at the language focus in Headway Upper Intermediate English, the student's book, Unit 7. And this language focus is found on page 63 in your student's book. We're going to be looking at modal auxiliary verbs. Part 1. Modal verbs have many meanings. Match a sentence in A with a meaning in B. So here we have 10 sentences. And then in B, column B, these words that describe different meanings. Let's check and make sure that we understand the meanings of these words, okay? So for example, ability, what does this mean? Ability means that a person can do something. I am able to swim, I can swim. Advice, I think this is a good idea. I don't think you should do that. Obligation. Obligation is when your father says you have to do something, or your teacher says you have to be in class at 10 o'clock. Permission, when your father says, yes, you can go out tonight, son, if you want. Probability is if we think something might happen, or if we don't think it will happen, but we're not sure, or if we're almost sure that something will happen, this is probability. Now, willingness, notice we have the prefix un in parentheses. Willingness means I will say yes, or I want to do something. Unwillingness is the opposite, when I say no, I won't do that. So this is the idea. Now, let's look at the sentences. You may want to pause and study them independently, but we'll go ahead. He can ski, ability. Number 2, can I go to the mall? This is using can to ask for permission. Number 3, you must stop at the crossroads, obligation. The law says you have to stop. Number 4, you must see the film, advice. I saw this film, I thought it was excellent. I really think you should see it too. You must see it. Number 5, he must be rich, probability. I saw someone wearing very nice clothes and he was driving a Ferrari. I think he must be rich. Number 6, I'll help you, willingness. 7, I won't help you, unwillingness. Number 8, you should stop smoking, advice. Smoking is bad for you. You need to stop. Number 9, it will be a good match. This is actually using will for probability. We could call this also a prediction. I'm going to watch a tennis match between two of the world's best tennis players. It will be a good match. I'm almost sure of it. Number 10, it might rain. Again, this is probability. Might, this means maybe it will rain, but then maybe it won't. We don't know. Number 2, which meanings in B do these related verbs express? So study these verbs: be able to, manage to, be allowed to, be bound to, be supposed to, promise to, refuse to, have to or have got to, be required to, be likely to, had better, why don't you? All right. Most of these we are familiar with. Manage to, I can't believe you managed to get here in less than 2 hours from Abha. Manage to is when something is hard to do, but we did it, right? Bound to be bound to do something is when we're sure or almost sure, maybe 99% sure that something is going to happen, right? Had better is for very strong advice. You had better do your homework because the test is the day after tomorrow, and if you don't do this homework, you won't be ready for the test. Now, which meanings in B do these related verbs express? Be able to, this is for ability. This is like can. Manage to, also ability. Something happened, but it was hard, but we did it, so we were able to. Be allowed to, permission. Right? I'm not allowed to go out when I have a test the next day. Be bound to, probability. You really should stop driving so fast because you're bound to have an accident. Be supposed to, this is permission. We're not supposed to leave class until the teacher says that class is finished. Promise to, willingness. I will help you. This is someone promising to help, showing they're willing to help. More verbs. Refuse to. Refuse is when you say, no, I won't do that. That's unwillingness. Have to or have got to, which you have studied before. Obligation. Possibly advice also. Okay. I have to be at work at 8 o'clock. My boss will be furious if I'm not there at 8. Or we could say, hey, you have to study if you want to do better on that test. That might be more like advice. Be required to, obligation. Be likely to, probability. Had better, advice. Why don't you, advice. We often give advice with these words, why don't you, in question form, right? Why don't you study more? Why don't you try to exercise more? Why don't you quit smoking? Now, what is the question, negative, and third person, singular of these sentences? I can speak Japanese. I'm able to speak 3 languages. I must go. I have to go. I've got to go. Notice the first 2 are very similar, but one is with I can, the other is with I'm able. These last 3 sentences, notice they have the same meaning. I must go, I have to go, I've got to go. These are more or less the same meaning. So let's look at different possibilities, different forms of these sentences. I can speak Japanese. In question form, can you speak Japanese? Of course, changing the subject to you. Negative, I can't speak Japanese. The third person singular, she can speak Japanese. Of course, it's the same for she or he. We need to choose the pronoun correctly depending on if we're talking about a man or a woman. I'm able to speak 3 languages. Are you able to speak 3 languages? I'm not able to speak 3 languages. He isn't able to speak 3 languages. I must go. We could say, must you go? Or we could ask this with, do you have to go? Must you go? Putting must at the beginning in question form is a little bit formal, but not very common, at least not in American English. We would probably say, do you have to go? But both of these forms are possible. Negative, I don't have to go. Notice if we want to say that something is not an obligation, we change to don't have to, where we might have said must in the positive form. Third person singular, she must go. I have to go. Do you have to go? I don't have to go. He has to go. I've got to go. Have you got to go? I haven't got to go. She's got to go. Now, put these sentences into the past and future. The same sentences in present simple are here on the left-hand column, so let's look at them in past simple. We say, I could speak Japanese. I was able to speak 3 languages. I had to go. I had to go, and I had to go. Notice, of course, these 3 that had the same meaning in present, but we could express it 3 different ways. We need to say had to for all of these because auxiliaries, modal auxiliaries do not have a past form. Okay? Now, let's look at the same, but in future. And here are the forms for you. Remember, there's no future for can, so we say, I'll be able. I'll be able to speak Japanese. I'll be able to speak 3 languages. And again, no future for must or have got. But with have to, which is a different type of expression grammatically, we can say have to with will. So I'll have to go. I will have to go. Right? I hope that is helpful to you.